What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here at the distance. Got a post-fight video for you guys for the bout between Chad Dawson and Bernard Hopkins. Bout took place last night for the Ring Magazine WBC Light Heavyweight Championship. Champion was Bernard Hopkins. Challenger was Chad Dawson. Chad Dawson, the challenger, became the champion, and Hopkins became the former champion as a result of the second round TKO, which took place with a non-called foul. Anyway, everybody is emphasizing on the ending of the bout. And pretty much my analysis of the fight was not much of an analysis. I thought that they both landed the same amount of punches in the first round, but Dawson threw more. He was the busier fighter. He was walking towards Hopkins, but Hopkins was kind of trying to set up his trap, using his footwork, trying to find a way for the right hand to land. And Hopkins can, from time to time, against fighters like Chad Dawson, it takes him a little while to figure him out, maybe 3-4 rounds to try to figure him out and dissect him. So, it is what it is. Me, I've been waiting for this fight for about 4 years now, since Dawson had fought Adamek and Hopkins was fighting Wright, coming out of retirement after a year before against Tarver. So, pretty much how do I look at this fight? First off, let's emphasize on the Chad Dawson tackle. With the Chad Dawson tackle, Hopkins was shooting for the right hand. Dawson kind of ducked it, lowered his head, moved his shoulder, kind of ducked his shoulder, and Hopkins kind of coming over the top. Usually what Hopkins does, we all know Hopkins like to put his arm down to kind of hold the fighter, and sometimes sneak in that right hand inside, because Dawson is the type of fighter that will not protect himself following a clinch, so Hopkins could shoot in that sneaky right hand and probably even sneak in a left hand as well, because that's just the kind of fighter that Hopkins is. Hopkins does like to sneak in the right hand at any opportunity that he gets. He's very opportunistic when it comes to the right hand, the short right hand inside. So pretty much, what happened was Hopkins was shooting for the right hand. Dawson ducked his shoulder. Hopkins, trying to put the arm down to clinch and hold him or something along those lines, hold the head down, and grab him so Dawson, doesn't get any type of offense on him or whatever, or even sneak in the right, as I mentioned, and had Hopkins in the air and dipped his shoulder, and Hopkins went down, landed. I don't know if he landed on his left arm or not, but it seemed as if HBO was looking for a way to say, to show that Hopkins was injured. Hopkins is a 46-year-old man, of course. Since he's 46, he probably can't take the same falls that a 36 or 26-year-old boxer or in any type of sport can take, because we don't know, how his body is holding up really. He does keep himself in good shape, but he's a 46-year-old man, so he probably cannot take the fall the same way that you and I can take the fall. So take a bump like that. What could be the most insignificant bump to us could probably be a bigger bump to him. Who knows? But how I look at it with the sport of boxing is that sometimes fighters' careers are made facing adversity, and Bernard Hopkins' career is already made. He's already fulfilled his legacy, and he's even trying to go dig deep and dig even further, as far as his legacy goes. And we know that any fight could be his last fight. I think even with the injury, and he probably was injured. We don't know. But I think he just should have fought with a deep level of urgency in this fight, despite being injured. He's a orthodox fighter, so his power shots come from his right hand, but he's not necessarily really dependent on that left jab. He's more dependent on the right hand. He could use the left as a decoy to set up the right hand. Who knows? But I just think that fighters in the sport of boxing, sometimes careers are made genuinely facing adversity. And Bernard Hopkins was facing adversity. His left hand. He says his left hand was injured. And I'm going to say benefit of the doubt. If the left hand was injured, he has two hands. You know what I mean? And this is coming from somebody that's been injured multiple times in my lifetime. whether it's the right hand, left hand, right leg, or left leg. I've been hurt my lifetime, and stuck it out and played games injured, even though I was shot up big time. But anyway, that's besides the point. This sport, a lot of careers are made on how a fighter faces adversity. Rewind about 50 years back, and think of the guys like Archie Moore, Joey Maxim, Randolph Turpin, Sugar Ray Robinson, some of the greats, some of the legends. Rewind back about 50 years ago. Do you think that these guys would have fought, with that same injury, or in that same situation? I think they probably could have, because there was a difference in eras, of course. The difference in eras, I think, they were tougher fighters. It was more smash mouth than anything else back then at that time in boxing. I think if you look at the legends of the sport, and Bernard Hopkins is a living legend of the sport, I believe that he could have fought with a deep level of urgency. But also, in this case, this is not, I don't think this should be the end for Hopkins. I think that they should continue on with the fight. If you look at, he should continue on fighting. I think he could have continued on with the fight, because, when fighters are cut, when fighters break a hand, they continue fighting. They continue fighting, and they secure their legacy, by, fighting with a level of urgency, of course. And I'm going to emphasize the word urgency, which a lot of fighters have done. Cuts, bruises, swelling. Look back at, if you look at the ending of Pernell Whitaker's career, Pernell Whitaker messed up his shoulder in his last fight, and that was the end of his career, unfortunately. That was like his last fight. And sometimes, the body can't hold up the way that it did, 10 years prior. Every 10 years, your body's going to be different than it was, 10 years before. Sometimes even 2 or 3 years before. But hey, this is a 46-year-old man, and he probably couldn't handle the fall the same way that you and I probably could. Who knows? But I do think that, hey, he could have continued fighting. And this is just my opinion. I think he could have continued fighting and fought with, like I said, with a deep level of urgency. Urgency being that key word, key phrase, key term. Urgency. I think he could have fought. I thought he could have continued fighting. And, even and it would be interesting what kind of adjustments he would make. Not even 100%, And even if he wasn't 100%, we would still warrant a rematch, knowing that he was injured in this fight. We would warrant a rematch just as much as we should warrant one now. I think we should warrant a rematch because, with Bernard Hopkins, I just believe that later in the fight, both fighters would have made certain adjustments, and it would have been interesting to see what kind of adjustments both fighters would make in this fight. In the later rounds, in the later stages of the fight, because Hopkins could start slow. It takes a while to figure him out, but also Chad Dawson can make adjustments as well, and it would be interesting to see what kind of adjustments both fighters would make. And not only that, fans have been waiting for this fight for a long time, and for it to end in 2 rounds, it really sucks, But it is what it is, It's boxing, no gentleman's sport, whatever. But also, fighters have fought through much worse. With their hands, even legs. Just think of Foreman, Cotto last year, Littles, Tony, even Mayweather Hernandez in 2001, when he broke his hand in the fight. Just fighters have been through a lot of, injuries, breaks, tears, and Hopkins may have torn something. Who knows? I didn't even read the news today. But like I said, 46, he cannot take the same fall 26-year-old can take. But he should have fought with urgency. Whether he was injured or not, whether he was selling an injury, or whether he was hurt or whether he wasn't hurt. And then second off, it should not have been a TKO. It should have been no contest. Hands down, should have been no contest. It was a non-boxing related foul. There was no punch thrown. It was just, Dawson probably, tackling Hopkins, dipping the shoulder, Hopkins going down, landing on his left hand, who knows, left elbow, whatever it was. But like I said, I think that Hopkins, I thought it should have been a no contest, but Hopkins should have continued fighting. So anyway, disagree, agree with me, don't care. Hit me up on Twitter, Julian W. the Great. I'm out here. That was a distance. Peace.